Now, for the past few days, we've been talking about social changes. Today, like I said, we're going to shift gears and talk political. Now, there's going to be three big areas that we're going to address today. Now, one of them is going to be about the spread of communism, and I've got to put that kind of on the back burner for right now, because there's something else that I need to address first. You have to keep in mind, all of the changes that we see coming are really just based on the backdrop of World War I. World War I destroys Europe. It levels empires. It has an entire generation of young men led to the slaughter. It changes the world more than anything had up to that point, especially the power structure. Now, as we talk some political changes today, the first thing that I want to unpack is just who's left. The Russians fall to communism. The Germans are under the Treaty of Versailles. Empires are falling apart. The Brits and the French are seriously wobbling. Who's the only one that's left? It's us. After World War I, you can make a real easy argument that we are the major victors. We become the world power. Now, this is a role that we had never had before. We were very much on the rise, but we were always competing against the Europeans. Now that they've destroyed themselves very effectively, it's left to us. The center of world finance used to be London. Now it's New York. We're the biggest industrial power in the world. We're the only one that's left. But there are lots of people saying, don't get involved in these world affairs. What people am I referring to here? The isolationists say, I told you so. I told you that meddling in world affairs was a problem. Look at what happened in World War I. Look at the carnage. Look at the destruction. Look at the death and the casualties. I told you, don't get involved over there. The Europeans are good at one thing, and it's killing each other. They've been doing it for centuries. Stay out of their affairs. Now, let me kind of say this. After World War I, after we've seen what we've been through, anyone's starting to look at the isolationists and saying, you're absolutely right. Leave the Europeans alone. This is probably when they're at their strongest. Saying, look what happens when we get involved in world affairs. We get dragged into the European mess. But there is one thing that is an icon of being involved in world affairs. This one thing that Woodrow Wilson outlines that he probably wanted more than anything. Do you remember, what's that one thing Woodrow Wilson talked about that he probably wanted more than everything on his list? What it was?
The UN.
Not the UN. The League of Nations. The Treaty of Versailles creates the League of Nations. It exists. But the United States says, we want nothing to do with that. Now, you have to kind of keep something in mind. In the American system of government, presidents can negotiate treaties, but the Senate has to approve. The U.S. Senate didn't even look at the Treaty of Versailles. They want nothing to do with it because they don't want to hand over American sovereignty, American independence, to an international body. We don't want to give them power over us. So the League of Nations is created, but the United States never joins it. Now, the League of Nations, when it's first established, has one big purpose: to prevent war from ever happening again. The League of Nations, in its charter, says that if one nation somewhere in the world is making an aggressive move, if they're pushing for war, then all the other nations will combine together and go to war against that one state. No one would be dumb enough to go... Uh-oh. Have we heard that before? No one's dumb enough to go to war until someone is. Here's the League of Nations joining together saying, we'll be an international police body. And the one opportunity they get to stand up to an aggressor, they fail miserably. Now, we're going to talk more about that going forward, but I want to point out, we want nothing to do with world affairs. But are world affairs going to come to us? Is it unavoidable? If we're the world power, world affairs are coming to us. So I want to go ahead and go on number 2 here. Communism's on the rise. It gets started in Russia. Now remember, we talked about this when World War I's coming to an end. Russia maybe suffered more than anyone. They lose their monarchy. He advocates the throne, and eventually Tsar Nicholas II and his family are assassinated. When the communists come to power, this idea is going into effect. Now, I'm always kind of careful when I highlight this, because the idea of communism was really thought out in the mid-late 1800s. The 2 men that came up with this idea were really more economists than anything else. Communism is an economic idea. The idea that all the wealth of a nation will be brought together and then redistributed evenly. If you have this huge economic idea, you need a government to do it. You need a political system. Now, some of you got to experience life under the communists when I gave you guys cash, sort of. Now, remind me, when the communists came around to collect all the wealth and then redistribute it evenly, you had 2 choices. You could hand over all your wealth to the state, or, what was option B? I can kill you and take it. That's power. A huge amount of power. Concentrated usually in one person, in an unchallengeable dictator. Now, I kind of forget, because some of you survived, right? Okay. Who survived my purge? Okay, Kennedy, you did? That was a mistake.
I think I did.
No, you did.
You think you did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
No,
Bailey, you did too. Asha, you did too. Anyone else survive?
Not everybody else.
I was busy that day. 3 survived. Okay, all right. Now, I got to ask you guys, when I redistributed the wealth, briefly remember how much money you got?
No, I know.
$10.
That's a great
You
answer.
got $10.
$10?
Yeah.
Well, where did the rest of it go?
You.
You don't know that.
Exactly.
Do you want to ask questions?
I'm already dead.
Does your family want to ask questions?
They're already dead.
Do your friends want to ask questions?
They're already dead.
Ah, the system works. This is how the communists operate. They eliminate private property, take all of it, and simply say, we'll go ahead and redistribute it evenly, according to what we think is even. There's an old saying about communism where people say, yes, under communism, everyone's equal. Everyone is equally miserable because you give over everything to the state. And if you have any questions, you'll just be eliminated. You'll just disappear. The secret police will come for you and your family in the middle of the night, and you'll just go away. There are people in Russia asking, where did our neighbors go? Where's that family we've lived next to for so long? And government officials will just say, don't worry about it. Do you want to ask questions? Anyone want to ask questions? Nope. You live under total government control. They run everything. And the communists are really good at lying too. Because they know that if they told the truth, they'd be thrown out of power. All they want is power. That's it. And they will lie. Up and down. We see it today. And people still don't get it. And I don't understand. The communists lie to you. As if there's a communist state right now that's the best liars in the world. Who do you think I'm referring to?
China.
The Chinese lie all the time. And I don't understand why people believe them. You got the WHO, the World Health Organization, going over there, and China says, yeah, we didn't really have a problem with the virus. Wasn't that big of a deal. In North Korea, they said they have 0 cases. You know why? They just murder anyone that coughs. That's what they do. This is how the communists operate. They still do it. Now let me ask, should we be a little nervous about this idea? It's an intellectual contagion. It's a virus. And this virus will spread. One of the main pillars of communism is it needs to go around the world. And they're open about it. They say the revolution doesn't stop in Russia. We will keep going. We will spread this idea around the world. And America is not immune to this. People start saying, is communism coming here? Is it going to infect America? Yes, it's on the move. People start fearing that communism is coming, and it leads to what's called the Red Scare. Now, I want to kind of point something out here. The communists have several symbols. This is one of them, the hammer and the sickle. Now, this represents like the industry and the farmers. This is one of their icons. They also have the red star, another one of their symbols. And simply just the color red is their symbol. There's a saying I'd rather be dead than red. I'd rather be dead than be a communist. People start saying that, yeah, it might come here. And they don't know how right they are. How do you know who's a communist? No one knows. They hide in plain sight. But ever since Lenin and his Bolsheviks toppled the Russian government, they've been openly saying, we will spread this idea. It's starting to trickle into Europe. There are lots of people in Europe saying, maybe this is the best idea we have. Because these Europeans have seen their empires collapse. They've seen their governments fall apart. And they start saying, well, our governments didn't have an answer during World War I. We've lost a generation of young men. Maybe these radical political ideas do have some answers. In Eastern Europe, the communists are on the move. In America, the communists are on the move. In the United States, the Communist Party will be established. Now, I usually kind of get this question. Well, why not just make the Communist Party illegal? Why not just not allow them to be created? What's the problem with not allowing a political party to exist?
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech and?
It's basically communism.
So Jeff, you're even one step ahead of me. They get freedom of speech protections and freedom of assembly. If you deny one political party from existence, why can't you just deny another one? And then another one. And then another one. Until you have one political party left. That's what the communists do. In China, right now, there's one political party. And if you don't participate, then you get eliminated. You just disappear. This is what the communists do. In the United States in the 1920s, we have 70,000 members of the Communist Party. So when the American people say, is communism coming here? You're too late. It's already here. 70,000 people start saying, we're bringing the Russian Revolution here. 70,000 people have organized, and they start sending bombs to people in the mail. Businesses, members of government. Should the United States be scared? Yup. Let's get rid of the communists. Where are they? You never know. They hide in plain sight. They just look like average people in society. You never know who they are. So then you ask someone, are you a communist? And they say,
No.
I'm not a communist. What?